Hello, and welcome to The Artist Pivot, a weekly conversation with artists about their current pivot, past pivots, and every pivot in between. I am your host, Idina Menzel, an actress who wants to educate, empower, and celebrate artists so they have no option but to thrive. On this episode, I am joined by the true multi-hyphenate Michael Kushner. He is the executive producer of the Emmy-nominated series Indoor Boys, and his next project is the Pink Unicorn film, starring Tony Winner Alice Ripley, for which he will be serving as producer and director of photography. He has performed in such shows as On the Town, Much Ado About Nothing, Sons on the Prophet, and is the creator of his one-man show, Moo With Me. His photography has been featured in the New York Times, Vogue, the Tony Awards, Playbill, and more. Creator of The Dressing Room Project, Michael has photographed Idina Menzel, Julie Andrews, and many more notable artists. Michael is one of the founding members of Musical Theater Factory, currently in residency with Playwrights Horizons, and was awarded the first ever MTF Builder Award. During COVID-19, Michael has stayed active in the theater community by serving as director of photography and producing virtual events such as Moments in the Woods, a virtual gala for the HFWAA featuring Lin-Manuel Miranda, which was nominated for a BroadwayWorld Award, Betsy Wolfe's A Pants-Optional Holiday, and It's a Wonderful Life, a live radio play featuring the Skivvies with Laguna Playhouse, and Leslie Kritzer's holiday show for the Actors Home. He's an active participant with Covenant House, and in 2020, Michael served as the keynote speaker for Florida Thespians. He currently has 2 podcasts out, Dear Multi-Hyphenate and My Broadway Memory with the Broadway Podcast Network. We discuss the science behind being a multi-hyphenate, how casting protocols need to change, and how he is using his many platforms to serve his life and others. Here's our conversation. Hey, everybody. So today, joining me on the podcast, I'm very excited to say I have my friend, Mr. Michael Kushner, joining me. Hello there, Michael.
Hi, it's so good to talk with you today.
Yes, I'm so excited. I'm very, very, very excited. So, as tradition, it seems to be in season 2, I'm not asking people how they are, like, how are you? Because that's such a loaded question right now. So I kind of break it down and I ask, number 1, how is your soul feeling today? And number 2, have you had enough water? Like, what are your hydration levels looking like right now?
That's hysterical. I'm feeling good in this moment. I had therapy just before this. So it was a very loaded therapy session. There were like 3 very distinct things that I wanted to talk about. And so it's so funny having like a therapy session where you're like, okay, point 1, great. We done? Moving on? Cool. Point 2. Okay, good. There's it. And point 3, the finale. It's like, a 3-act play in an hour. But water, that's the funny question. Water. My boyfriend tries desperately to get me to drink anything. And it's so weird. It's like, I just forget to drink. Like I love water. I love what it does to my body, but actually pouring a glass of water, putting it into my hands, up to my lips and ingesting it is a different story. I don't know why.
That's fair.
Did you drink water today?
Yes, I have. I have my 32-ounce bottle next to me, and I just started. So I'm only about a 4th in, but it's my mission to try to drink 2 of these a day.
All right. You're inspiring me to get started on that.
Yes. Just carry it around. Carry around the water bottle, even in the house. Yeah. I literally carry it from room to room.
Okay. What is the time that it takes for something to become to become like etched to become?
I think it's 21 days, I think, to establish a habit. I think it is.
Yes, that's the word I was looking for. Okay, you could do it. We could do it. 21 days.
Yes, you can do it.
21 days. We'll be able to do it. It's good.
Yes. Get a water bottle that you carry around.
I love that. Come on, Hydro Flask.
Okay. Yes, Hydro Flask. I love that.
This is an ad for Hydro Flask now, apparently. Yes. Let's see if we can get you some commercial spots, some air time.
I'm here for it.
I don't know why words aren't coming easy to me today. I'm like literally, I'm searching for every single word I come up with. So please bear with me if I'm like, what's the word?
No problem. You got it. Because trust me, Michael, I have those days.
Oh my God. Right? Today might be one of those days.
And that's okay. That's the present moment you're in.
Yes. Yeah. And I love, that's why I love recording podcasts, because like, you never know what you're actually going to get. And the podcasts are a real slice of life of like
Mm-hmm.
getting to know someone, and they're not performative. So I appreciate when someone is having, I don't want to say I'm having an off day. I don't think I'm having an off day, knock on wood. But like one of the things that is happening in Michael Kushner's life right now is that I'm just like, what's that word? And that's what you're going to get.
Yes. Yes. This is what you're going to get, everybody. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
I love it. I love it. So yes, Michael, let's talk pivots here as an artist. Let's talk
Pivots.
all the pivots. Okay. So you actually currently have a podcast out called Dear Multi-Hyphenate. So we're actually going to get to that in a second, but
Yeah.
I want to take our listeners back to before 2020, when you made voluntary pivots in your life as an artist.
Yeah, it's a great way to put it.
Mm-hmm.
So I have been in the industry 21 years, and I started as a child actor. And I quickly realized throughout high school, which was performing arts high school, and Frenchwoods, which is a performing arts sleepaway camp, and studying musical theater at Ithaca College, I quickly realized that a lot of the stories that I want to tell are not stories that I'm going to be able to tell on stage. And so I started to keep myself excited by investing in the journey that was other proficiencies. And I didn't know really what I was doing yet. The fact that it was possible to combine all of these efforts into one macro artist. And along the way, what was happening was, as I was taking photos, or I was running the radio station in college, where I was on the guest artist committee in college, or whatever it was, writing this, whatever. People would ask me along the way, being like, "Oh, you're doing this now?" Or when are you going to pick one thing? Or like, "Wow, you have a lot of hobbies." And I think those three observations are really hindering to an artist's development, because one, they're not hobbies. And,
Yeah.
I talk about the hobby versus the proficiency a lot. The hobby we do for joy. It doesn't matter about income. There are no pressures put on us. It's relaxation. It's just, there's no stress. But our proficiency is actually something that we develop income for. And one day I was at Musical Theater Factory, which is a nonprofit organization that is dedicated to producing new musicals free from pressures of critical commercial success, and decentering stories like from white straight men, and putting forward marginalized communities' stories. And it's an incredible organization, Musical Theater Factory, founded by Shakina Nafak, now under the artistic development of Man Tiao. But I'm a founding member back in 2014. And there was an event, and my friend Mary Jo McConnell literally looked at me and was like, she was asking me what was going on. And I was like, and she said, "You're such a multi-hyphenate." And I was like, "What is that word?" And I sort of like went home and was like, all right, that's the word. There's this, but there has to be a science to it. Like, it's not about, like, I'm not a roller skater, an illustrator, and an actor. I have all of these different proficiencies that sort of tie into each other and affect the other. So there has to be a science, and there has to be an explanation to that. And I know I'm not the only person. Like, there are people like Mel Brooks that have done it. There are people like, I just discovered, Molly Brown, a survivor of the Titanic, would be considered a multi-hyphenate. Lin-Manuel Miranda, these very famous people, all multi-hyphenates. And I was like, what about, those are people that are in the spotlight, celebrities. What about the people that are, that haven't had a multi-million-dollar movie, or have had a 40-year career, or have had a commercial show on Broadway? What about those people? So I really, I was like, you know what? I'm going to start talking about this. I'm going to start collecting stories and sharing my perspective. And it's actually, a lot of people have been really drawn to it. I'm really proud of that creation.
I love it. I love it. Yes. So I would ask you, before you got to the podcast and, really started sharing stories about people who are multi-hyphenated, some of yours were, if I'm correct, were like an actor and also a photographer and also, like you said, running the radio station. So all of these things you found work together, correct?
Yeah. So that's the whole idea of the multi-hyphenate, is that
Mm-hmm.
every proficiency that one has, they should affect the other. So
Mm-hmm.
if we're sort of looking at it like it's an infinity sign, right?
Yeah.
There's no real center of everything, but every sort of thing visits each other. So the way that I break it down is like, my income with my photography helps me produce projects which I can be in or I'm passionate about. And
Hmm.
the stories that I learn from those experiences, I could put on my podcast and build an audience, which will bring people into my studio. And then the income that I get from my studio will help me produce projects that you know what I mean?
Yes.
It's all affecting each other. It's all helpful to each other. And that is what I think a multi-hyphenate is. I think a lot of people are like, they consider themselves multi-hyphenates, but they're missing that link. I'm like, great, I
Mhm.
love that you can do all these things. That's awesome. But how do they help each other? How do they lift your why and your understanding of yourself higher?
Mhm. Mhm. Exactly. Exactly. That's a great point. Like, that is a great, great point. I wrote that down so I could come back to that in a
Of
second.
course.
But what I'd like to know is, with the podcast, did you have this idea before the pandemic or was it after? Because, you said that your friend gave you this idea and you were like, oh, what's that word? Like, let me look that up. Let me see what's going on. And you're like, oh, that's it. That's me. That's who I am. So in sharing the stories, was the podcast as a platform to share your experience and other people's experience? Did that idea for that, using this platform, come before the pandemic, or it kind of happened? You were like, oh, this is a way I can share the stories now.
Yeah, it's a great question. I actually started the podcast by myself. I recorded about 2 episodes by myself and was like, I think in like 2018,
Okay.
and was like, this is a lot for me to do in this
Mm-hmm.
moment. I don't know if I can do this. And I sort of put it away for a while.
Okay.
And then my friend Alan at Broadway, who's the co-founder of Broadway Podcast Network, was like, come join Broadway Podcast Network. We'll help you produce it. And I was like, really? So that decision was made in December or November or December of 2019. And then I started recording new episodes in January of 2019. So
Mm-hmm.
that was 2 months before the pandemic started. And I had no idea, none of us knew what life would look like in 2.5 3 months. And
Mm-hmm.
so Broadway Podcast Network was amazing, and they really were like, all right, we're going to go virtual. Like, this is how we're going to go remote. And
Mm-hmm.
they were incredible with offering us resources and being like, this is how you do it. This is how you soundproof. These are the programs that we're going to record on. This is how you schedule. We're going to do like keynotes and guest speakers of like protocol and
Mm-hmm.
how to work with Apple and like all these different things. They really provided incredible resources. And that was when I sort of started, like, I never considered podcaster as a hyphen, as a proficiency,
Hmm.
because it was like an extension of my actor, my performance
Mm-hmm.
hyphen, because it was just a tool that I was using to be able to communicate with an audience. Then after now producing the podcast and like understanding all the technicalities of it and the amount that it actually does, the amount of producing and the amount of time that it does require, I was like, you know what? I think this is its own thing. I think I would put it as a hyphen and a proficiency because it
Mm-hmm.
checks the boxes off of what I consider as the list of what should be the checkbox thing of a proficiency. Like I say, are you getting paid for it? Is there a paper trail? And are you joyous and passionate over it? And I check all three things. So I was like, you know what? I can. I'm gonna add podcaster to my hyphenate, my multi-hyphenate identity.
I love it.
Yeah.
Yes.
And like looking at you, Ayana, it's just like, you're a podcaster, but you use Uplifted Artists as, you're the founder and CEO, which has a lot of producing and, leadership qualities. And then you have this podcast, but you're also a performer. So like, you are a multi-hyphenate. Hey.
Yes. Hey, I am a multi-hyphenate now. Yes, I love it. Yeah. And you're right. All of the things that I am now doing they feed into each other. Not kind of, they do. They feed into each other. But it's that, going back to what you said about there's kind of a science behind being a multi-hyphenate, and do all of the branches connect to each other? Do they all blend? Do they all help each other? And I think that as artists, there's a little, what's the word I want to use? There's a little disconnect, I think, with the fact of being multi-hyphenate, but them not actually connecting.
Yeah, I think that's a really great point. I think what it boils down is to buzzwords and fads.
Okay.
I think some people hear the word multi-hyphenate and they immediately go, I'm a multi-hyphenate. Because that's like the word that's happening with a lot of people. It's like, it's a buzzword. It can be a buzzword because I think people with social media, it's very easy to see a word and to see what people are writing about it, or to, but I wouldn't ever add something to my identity like the word multi-hyphenate, or like, people have artivist or like entrepreneur. Like the word that I found is multi-hyphenate. That's the best one. Why wouldn't I consider myself an artivist? It's because activism it's found in my hyphens. Like
okay. Yeah.
Activism is found in my hyphens, and it's not like the things that I produce are meant to change people. The things that I engage in are meant to change people, but I personally am not at the forefront organizing rallies. I am not at the forefront, starting nonprofits. Like, I mean, Musical Theater Factory aside in 2014, but activism does influence my hyphen. So while it is a part of my why, and it's producing non-quotidian artistry that benefits the world around me, I think saying that I am an activist as like my main title, or putting that in my hyphen, is a little unfair to the activists that are actually like Marla Liu and Dimitri Moise, who have founded Claim Our Space Now. And like, they are activists. They have established this nonprofit organization that is literally changing the game for, dismantling racism. And that's an activist. That's an activist as a part of the hyphen. So I have to, multi-hyphenating is constantly checking yourself and putting aside the ego and being like, what is the art that I'm putting out there, and how are people perceiving me? Like, I think ultimately you have to really keep those, you have to cut the fat and sort of go, I am this, and this, and be able to explain it very simply, mainly because if you can't explain it simply, then you don't know it well enough, which is an Albert Einstein quote that inspires me daily. If you can't explain it simply, then you don't know it well enough.
Yeah, that's great. And it's incredible to kind of, take a look, like in this time that we're currently in, to take a look and kind of see how many artists have genuinely pivoted and have been excited about, I guess their newfound hyphen that they kind of always had.
Yeah.
But I think in our industry, we're shamed if we do multiple things that do blend together, that have kind of an infinity connection, But if you don't focus on one, oh, you're the actor, or you're the photographer, or you're the producer, or you're whatever, if you do try to add things and really are a true multi-hyphenate, you kind of get shamed in our industry.
Yeah, it's so interesting. I think anyone that any front runners that start something new they always risk shame and they always risk rejection. And something that I always say to budding multi-hyphenates, like the college kids that I work with, or like people that, take me out to coffee and pick my brain, or, I have a workshop a multi-hyphenate workshop that I teach with Ashley Kate Adams and Kimberly Faye Greenberg. And a lot of questions that we're asked is like, how do I become a multi-hyphenate? What about, all that stuff? But one of the biggest things that I say is you have to risk the rejection of each of your proficiencies. So if you're an actor, you risk rejection, right? But say now you add, for me, for instance, actor, photographer, producer, writer, podcaster, that's 5 times the rejection and that I risk in putting art out into the world. And I think front runners in new fads, I don't want to say fad because multi-hyphenating isn't a fad, but front runners in new discoveries about artistry or of life are always up for critique, and they risk rejection. And I'm not the only front runner in this industry that is I'm not saying like I'm the front runner, but like myself and the other people that are having active conversations about multi-hyphenating. I mean, I can't even tell you the conversations that I've had with people that reject the idea. And I'm like, honey, I have one thing to say to you. By investing in the multi-hyphenate lifestyle, I not only survived a pandemic, but I was able to thrive in a pandemic, forward my art, and pay my bills solely on the art I was creating. So you can't tell me otherwise.
Right. You have lived the experience, and you're like, you're not going to tell me that this isn't the way I should go, and this isn't the way I should live my life.
In a time where the industry is obviously experiencing this upheaval, and rightly so, because there are so many things that need to be dismantled and revisited and reshaped. Obviously, yes. But the stakes could not be higher for an artist's survival. Like, in no world will I ever be worried about what a casting director thinks of me ever again.
Amen. Woo!
I just do not care. Because I'm tired of them being gatekeepers to these experiences that I know I meet every single criteria in the breakdown. And the fact that like you won't even look up from the table and watch me. You called me in, but from the moment I walk into this room, you don't make eye contact with me once, and that is abuse of power.
Yes.
That is saying I am above you. You just spent $100 on your coaching. You just bought a new audition outfit. You just took off of work. You just did this all to come into my space for 3 minutes. But guess what? I'm not going to look at you.
Right.
That's an abuse of power. And
yes,
the multi-hyphenate doesn't allow for that anymore. Because guess who's in power now? Guess who's my own boss? I'm my own boss.
Exactly.
And by surviving, because I had COVID, but surviving that virus, which put things into perspective, and understanding that the artistry, the newsworthy artistry, the artistry that is gaining me a following is bringing me happiness and isn't dependent on a casting director. It's severely making me look at who I am as an actor and going, a lot of the happiness, a lot of the projects that I will be doing as an actor might not ever rely on the casting director. And that is a bold move to say that might strip 99% of the opportunities that I have to be an actor, but I don't care anymore because I have my photography proficiency that is allowing me to produce projects I can be in and tell my own stories. So I don't care anymore.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I mean, yes, understood. And that is, I think, well, let me speak for myself, because I'm not going to say all artists, but something that I am working towards as well, because it's like, yes, I would like to be in someone else's show, great. But if I don't happen to get cast, great. Like, I am doing other things that make me happy. I am doing other things that I can be artistic and creative with. And you're right, it doesn't depend on this casting director or producer or whoever it is that's the gatekeeper of this production.
Yeah.
If you don't want to let me in, that's all right. I have all of these other things that make me happy and that I can do to fill my creativity. Like you said, you have your photography, you have your producing, you have your podcast, you have all of these things that are not dependent on someone else. They're only dependent on you.
Yeah.
That's it. You don't have to ask for permission.
And of course, the toughest one is the actor hyphen, because the way that the industry is shaped right now is that, like, in order to produce projects that are your own stories requires a lot of privilege, right? It requires money, time, just relationships. It requires a lot of different things that require acknowledge of privilege. And I just want to say that, I want to say that as well. Like, the fact that I was able to get a scholarship to my performing arts high school, and then I was able to go to a sleepaway camp, and then I was able to pay for college and build this network of people is a reflection of the privilege that I have subscribed to in my life. And I have to acknowledge that. But as I navigate my artistry through my life, one of the ways that I really want to give back is for people to understand that we do have agency. And I am trying hard to, in my own ways, dismantle the ways that actors rely on others for job opportunities.
Right.
That is a huge drive in the multi-hyphenate identity, because there's so many actors out there that have points of views and talent and stories and voices that aren't able to ever share that. And it's so upsetting and so disappointing and saddening, because and maddening as well, because why are we seeing the same people over and over and over and over again half-ass these jobs when there's someone right there that has lived it, but they can't even get through the door? And that is time to end. That is a great reflection of the industry that once was, and that will forever be immortalized in movies and period pieces. But it's time to move on. It's time to figure out. There was once I once worked with a casting director in an audition, and I think they said to me, if anyone has a better idea other than auditioning to cast actors, let us know. And I wanted to be like, that's your job. As a casting director, that's your job, is to figure out the better ways.
Right.
Is to go, and if you are a casting director, that means your primary job is casting. And I know that there's a lot of gunk to weed through in order to find the person that does the job, but everyone can do better.
Yeah.
Everyone can do better. And I have friends that are casting directors, but I think casting directors are gatekeepers to this industry and hinder artists from doing their work.
Yeah.
I'm not saying the casting director has to go away. I'm just
not
saying
at all.
that, no, I think that being a casting director can be really helpful. I think that I think that they can absolutely help the producer, help the director, help whoever. But I think this hierarchy has got to go.
Yes. Yes, I agree with you. The hierarchy has got to go. And also, you made a very valid point that I was like, oh, let's talk about that for a hot second. The finding the person that actually fits the breakdown. But then when you put out the breakdown, don't accept appointments from people who don't fit it. Oh, well, we'll still see all of those people. But you just said you were very specific about what's in this breakdown. So find someone who has lived that experience and not bring in an actor. Oh, well, I know them, so let's just bring them in. But they don't fit the breakdown.
Right. Yeah. And that's when it becomes business of show, when
Mm-hmm.
that's when it's like the IOU or my friend is behind the table, I'll get you in, don't worry. You know, that's when it becomes like show business. And who's to say that those things will ever be, eradicated? Is that the right word? Will ever be erased?
Mm-hmm.
Who's to say? And I am on fire today. I am feeling some sort of a way. So, forgive me for like really spilling the tea here, but, I'm really passionate about this. But, in my headshot sessions, like this same mentality, these points of views, I really try to bring to my clients, because if a casting director is seeing 6,000 photos for one breakdown, one role, 6,000 photos, how the hell are you going to get into a room? You have to color your headshots with the same specificity and the same drive that you have with the material that you choose. And when you're imagining yourself on stage on opening night, you have to bring that specificity into the headshot, because if you have a specific story that you want to tell for a breakdown, that has to read in the headshot. That's how you get into the room. If you don't have any connection to anyone on the project or in the room, that's how you get into the room, is your headshot. And so it can no longer be just a nice picture of you. You have to weed through the fat with your headshot and the way that you represent yourself. And it starts with the stories that you tell. It starts with your points of view. It starts with your past and your heart and and what you bring to the table. It has to read in a headshot.
Yeah. Understood. Yes. Because that's your calling card. And that's your like, oh, when I see that person's headshot, oh, I know their point of view. I know the stories they're telling. I know what has happened and their experiences. People
look at me like my head is, I lost my head when I say, I think, we should get a black and white shot look for you. And people are like, what? And I'm like, no, not 1986 black and white headshot. I'm talking about look at the things that are being filmed in black and white right now. We have WandaVision, right? WandaVision, there was a whole episode of Sabrina that was filmed in black and white. Roma, Frances Ha, those are 4 things on the top of my mind. And yeah, they're few and far between. But if you're an artist that is telling me I love telling beautifully shot, cinematic gems, the ones that are few and far between, the stories that, and then there's the new movie, there's the new movie about the Hollywood writer that was in black and white, and that just came out very recently. So if if you justify it, if things are being shot in black and white, that means you should have an option to show yourself in black and white. And when I like shooting with shadows, when I like shooting with these things, people look at me like I have 2 heads.
Right.
And ultimately what it does is it gets you in the room. Is it specific? Yeah. Is it new? Yeah. But does it work? Yeah.
Right. And it's something to have in your back pocket. Because like you said, you're not going to use it all the time. But when the opportunity comes to use it, you have it.
Right. Exactly. You might not lead with that headshot, but you might not lead with every single story. There are some clients that come into my studio and they're like, I want to be on a Disney cruise for the next 5 years. And I go, yes, I love that. Thank you for giving me guidance and a goal. Now let's turn this headshot session into a Disney cruise. Let's get you pictures that scream that you have different pictures for different tracks, for different parks, for different cruises. Like, let's dive in. And if that's what you want to spend today, I need you to make a choice.
Right.
And that's the whole idea about the multi-hyphenate identity, is that you have an agency that when you go in for your website consultation, your headshot shoot, your coachings, your final callbacks, you have agency to make decisions that you're comfortable with. And that scream you, that show that this is my career, this is how I engage with myself in the career, and I'm comfortable doing so.
Right. Absolutely. Absolutely. You just wrapped that up in a nice little bow.
Thank you.
I love it. I love it so much. Yes. Yes. Michael, thank you so much. Thank you so much for coming on and giving me a little slice of your time, because I know you are busy.
Oh my gosh. I threw you through the ringer with finding out. We would figure out a day to record this, and then all of a sudden it was like,
life happens.
and I'm really trying to navigate, like, I'm committing to this time. I'm trying to blah, blah, blah. But then, sometimes it's just, you just gotta do it. But I'm glad that we found the time to chat. This is great. And you are a fabulous host, and I love spending time with you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. And before I let you go, there is something that I must say to you.
Oh my God.
And that is, I acknowledge you, I celebrate you, and I uplift you.
Oh, that just sent chills down my spine. Thank you.
You're so very welcome. You're so very welcome. Michael, thank you so much for sharing. I love your breakdown of how you approach being a multi-hyphenate and the science behind it. If all of your hyphens truly do intertwine and are an infinity loop, then they all support each other. I hope in this time more artists branch out and aren't afraid to find and nurture their other hyphens. Thank you again, Michael, and thank you for tuning in. I'll speak to you soon.